Is now a good time to buy a home? Is the market going to crash? Should I wait for prices to come down? All of these are legitimate questions, and in today's video, we're going to take a look at each one of these questions, and we're going to get started right now. Hi, my name is David Matney with Nebraska Realty. I'm a local realtor here in Omaha, Nebraska. Now let's jump into today's topic. Is now a good time to buy a home? Now, I'm of the belief that you should only buy something if you can truly afford to do so, period. That means you can afford to buy at today's interest rate. Now, today's interest rate is near 8% for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. That's a 23-year high for mortgage interest rates. Do not buy the home with the assumption that rates are going to come down, because what if they don't? There's a saying out there that goes something like this: marry the home and date the rate. Now, I really don't like that saying because guess what? Being married is hard. What happens if home prices decrease and you don't have enough equity when rates drop? You may not be able to refinance. A home is not like buying a stock. You should buy a home with the expectation of living in it for several years. If you buy a home, then turn around and sell it immediately, there's a good chance you're going to lose money. When you take out commissions, the cost to move, closing costs, and all that sort of thing, chances are you're going to be upside down. You should buy a home when you have a long-term outlook and you can see yourself living in the home for several years. You can afford the payment at today's interest rate, and there's more benefits to home ownership besides price appreciation. There's the pride that comes along with ownership. There's the freedom that comes along with making improvements and that sort of thing. Let's take a moment and talk about an improvement. Doing an improvement does not necessarily add value to your home. For example, let's say you decide to install a new roof. People expect to buy a home with a roof on it. Just because your roof is new doesn't mean you can add that value back into the property. It means you just brought the home up to selling standard. Recently, I know a couple who bought a home in October of 2022, and they paid $230,000 for this property. Then they went out and put an additional $200,000 in improvements to the property. So they had a grand total of $430,000 into this home. Now, the home is not worth $430,000. Now, these folks ended up deciding to move a year later. So in September of 2023, they put it on the market. Now, keep in mind, they paid $230,000 for this property. Then they sunk an additional $200,000 in improvements. What do you think the home sold for? Just for fun, I'm going to push pause on the video and leave your guess in the comment section below. All right, they sold this home for $312,600. They lost money the day they bought that home. They made a couple of mistakes. Okay, number one, some upgrades were not necessary. Now, if you want to make an upgrade to your home, that's great. But hey, don't expect the next buyer to pay for it. Now, this may not be readily apparent, but they also decided to go through the listing agent and not have their own representation. Okay, so that means that's great for the listing agent. That's a thing called dual agency. That's where the agent represents both the buyer and the seller. But there's a little bit of a drawback on that, and that is, how can one agent truly represent both sides of a transaction? What's also nice, if you're the agent, that's a dual agent, that means you double-ended the commission. Now, if they would have asked me, hey, what do you think if we should do this to the property? I would say you can do that, but keep in mind, you may not get your money back from that improvement. Also, a home is only going to sell what a buyer is willing to pay for it. It's not what you put into it. Now, the real estate market is brutal. It's kind of like the Terminator. It doesn't care about your feelings, and it doesn't care about being fair. Homes sell for market value. There's another lesson in this transaction too, and that is if you're moving to Omaha, it's okay to rent for a year to see if you like it. That way you can learn the city, you find out where you like to hang out, what you like to do. You can explore the city and the suburbs, and that way you can truly find a spot you're comfortable with. Now, when you buy a home, prices fluctuate. In fact, if you'd like to track your home's value, I have a tool called HomeBot. It's free and there's no obligation, and I'll leave a link in the description below. Understand the real estate market is like any other market. Prices go up and prices go down. Let's say prices do go down 10%. Do you have to sell? No. Now, is anyone going to be happy if prices go down 10%? No. But again, you should look at your home as more than just an investment. It's a place to raise your family. It's where you make your memories and all that sort of good stuff. Now, you might be motivated to put your family in a better school system or have a better quality of life. And let's say you're moving from the West Coast and you want to give your family a better quality of life, or you have a job opportunity that might be worth making the move. There's two things you want to keep in mind. Don't assume prices will always go up, and don't assume that rates are going to be heading down. Nowadays, all it takes is a camera and everybody is a financial advisor or an expert in the real estate market on YouTube. Truth is, nobody knows what the future holds, and everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different. If being rich were easy, then there would probably be more rich people. Now, remember all the people back in 2020 and 2021 when rates were at 3% and somebody paid $30,000 over list price? Guess what? There were doom and gloomers back then saying the same thing they're saying now, and that is, this won't last, it's unsustainable, and the market is going to crash. Guess what? 5 years ago, we had low inventory, prices were up. And I had people say back then, I'm going to wait for the market to correct. Well, guess what? They're still waiting. I bought my very first home back in August of 1990. Okay, it actually closed on August 1st of 1990. Now, the very next day, Iraq invaded Kuwait. Did I panic? No, it was a rental property. My payment, this is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, was $135 a month. And the rent was $400 a month. So I paid $10,000 for this property, and the interest rate at the time was 13.5%. Now, at the time, $10,000 was a lot of money for me. Okay. And honestly, I didn't even understand the real impact of interest rates because I just thought, well, that's the rate, and I paid it. Now, 3 years later, I sold that property for a loss. I sold it for $9,500. So I lost $500 on the property. However, I rented it to the same tenant for 3 years. Now, did I really lose money? No. You won't make a killing on every deal. And sometimes you make mistakes, but if you make a mistake, go ahead and learn from it. Now, on that particular transaction, let's say I would have lost the entire 10 grand. That would have still been a good opportunity for me because it was a good learning experience. Looking back, I think the one mistake that I've made over the course of my lifetime so far is that I should have bought more real estate. There were deals out there that I let go for $500. Now, I could have bought a home, I remember one in particular, for $135,000. Now, today that home would be worth $3.25. In fact, 10 years ago, you could go out there and buy a new home for around $150,000. Guess what? That didn't seem like that great a deal back then because that was the market at that time. And here's another little example, and that is, I remember back in the early 1990s, I took a trip with some friends out to California. We stayed at their sister's house. And at the time, the house we stayed in was in Fountain Valley, and I think it was $275,000, okay, which at the time was just a ton of money. Now, what is that home worth today? Well, it's probably a couple, at least $1.5 or $2 million. If you're a buyer, prices are always going to seem high. And there's always going to be some level of uncertainty out there. And only with time and the ability to look back are you going to really say, well, hey, I got a really good deal on that property? And, at the time, you paid market value. And here's the other thing too, and that is the perfect home doesn't exist. There's always going to be something. When you do a home inspection, the purpose of a home inspection is to reduce your risk. It's not going to eliminate that risk. Now, is the market going to crash? Again, real estate markets are like any other market. It all revolves around supply and demand. If you have an abundance of supply and no demand, prices will fall. If you have an abundance of demand and no supply, then prices are going to increase. Right now, we have low supply. We have not built enough homes in the past decade to keep pace with demand. And here we have another effect too, and that is in the fact that the market is frozen, meaning move-up buyers are not moving out of their entry-level home because they locked in such a low interest rate. Sellers with that entry-level home would like to buy a larger home, but they don't want to sell their $300,000 home at a 3% interest rate to go out and upgrade that home to a $500,000 home at an 8% interest rate. Well, can't builders just build more entry-level housing? Builders can't build entry-level housing and maintain profitability. Just the development of the lot itself is going to run a builder about $100,000. So you end up with an abundance of higher priced homes that nobody can afford. 25% of a home's price is in government regulation. It just simply costs more to build a home. If we have job losses, then you may see prices come down. Again, time will tell. The real estate market is like the weather. It's local. Again, it's going to depend on your local market. The housing market closely follows the job market. In Omaha, we have record low unemployment. However, things can change. The other demand issue is demographics. The largest segment of our population right now is in the 30 to 40 year mark. That means the largest segment of the market is at peak buying age. That's pushing demand higher. We also have baby boomers who are aging in place. Those folks are choosing to stay in their homes instead of going to a nursing home. When you look at a market like Omaha, then you take our quality of life and the ability to work from home. Here's another factor, and that is you have buyers choosing to live in Omaha, even though they work at a company in a much larger city, maybe on the coast. Over time, what I think you will see is a change in the type of housing. 15 years ago, a young couple might purchase a split entry home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage in the Omaha market for $150,000. Today, the young couple starting out might have to settle for a smaller 2-bedroom townhome, row home, or a condo with a 1-car garage. I think what you'll see is a change in the type of housing moving forward. I'm going to mention something else here, and this is not political or anything like that, but that is, as you have more people crossing the southern border, those folks, unless they're moving back across the border, they have to live somewhere. That's going to put pressure on demand, and nobody seems to be talking about that. Should I wait for prices to drop? How much are they going to drop? How will you know you're at the bottom? The only way you know where the bottom is when the market is heading back up. What if prices drop, but rates remain high or go even higher? The market doesn't move in unison either. You might have more price pressure in the upper price point, but not as much in the lower price point. All of this is trying to time the market, and nobody can do that. And I hear this one too. Oh, you're a real estate agent. You make money when people buy or sell. And that's true. Of course, you want people to buy. And that's true. I am very bullish on home ownership. But there are times when it's much better to rent. If you feel better renting, then go ahead and rent. You don't have to buy. Truth is, there's good deals in every market. And you can make mistakes in any market too. Finding good deals now is harder, but they're out there. Speaking of good deals, check out this video on VA assumptions, because if you're patient and you want a really smoking deal, this might be a great opportunity. And don't forget, please hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and if you don't mind giving this video a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks, and make it a great day.